The mining drill screamed against the asteroid rock as Kang Minho wiped sweat from his forehead. Another 12-hour shift on Mining Station 7 was almost over. The small asteroid they worked on floated at the edge of human space where few ships ever came. It was quiet work that suited Minho just fine. He had been working the deep core sections for 3 years now. Most miners avoided the deep work because the rock was harder and the pay was the same. But Minho liked the silence down there. No supervisors breathing down his neck. No other workers complaining about the food or the long shifts. Just him and the steady rhythm of the mining equipment. The drill hit something different. Instead of the usual grinding sound of metal against rock, there was a hollow echo. Minho stopped the machine and checked his scanners. The readings showed empty space ahead, which was impossible. This asteroid was supposed to be solid rock all the way through, he called up to the surface on his radio. Control, this is Minho. In Deep Section 5, I'm getting strange readings down here. The voice of Supervisor Park crackled back through the static. What kind of readings, Minho? Looks like there might be a cave or hollow space in the core. The drill just broke through into something. Probably just a gas pocket. Keep drilling and watch your air filters. Minho frowned at the scanner display. The empty space was huge, much bigger than any gas pocket should be. But Supervisor Park never liked to hear about anything that might slow down production. The company wanted their quota of rare metals, and they wanted it on schedule. Still, something felt wrong about this. Minho had been mining asteroids for 15 years before coming to Station 7. He knew what gas pockets looked like on the scanners. This was something else entirely. He put on his environmental suit and grabbed a portable light array. Company rules said he should wait for backup before investigating unknown spaces, but backup could take hours to arrive. And if this turned out to be nothing special, Supervisor Park would be angry about the lost production time. The hole the drill had made was just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. Minho clipped his safety line to the drill housing and lowered himself into the darkness beyond. His lights revealed a vast cavern inside the asteroid. But this was not a natural cave. The walls were too smooth and covered with strange markings that looked almost like writing. The floor was level and made of some kind of dark metal that reflected his lights in odd patterns. In the center of the cavern sat the most amazing thing Minho had ever seen. At first glance, it looked like a massive crystal formation, easily 30 meters long and 10 meters tall. But as Minho moved closer with his lights, he could see it was not crystal at all. It was some kind of creature, but unlike anything in the databases back on Earth, the being had the basic shape of the dragons from old Earth stories, but its body seemed to be made of both organic tissue and metallic components. Tubes and cables run along its sides like veins. Panels of what looked like living metal covered parts of its back and wings. Its head was elegant and intelligent looking, with closed eyes that seemed almost human in their peaceful expression. Minho approached carefully, his scanner showing that the air in the cavern was safe to breathe. The creature was not moving, but his equipment detected faint energy signatures coming from within its body. It was alive, but barely. He walked around the magnificent being, taking readings and photos. The metal components looked incredibly advanced, far beyond anything humans had developed, but they also looked old, very old. Some of the metal panels were corroded, and several of the tube connections had come loose, near what he assumed was the creature's head. Minho found a series of symbols carved into the cavern floor. His translation software could not identify the language, but the arrangement looked purposeful, almost like a name or title. As he knelt to get better photos of the symbols, his light array illuminated the creature's face more clearly. What he saw made him gasp. There were dried tracks down from the closed eyes, as if this magnificent being had been crying when it fell into whatever sleep or stasis it was in now. Minho had never considered himself particularly emotional, but something about those tear tracks hit him hard. This creature, whatever it was, had been suffering when it went dormant. It had been alone and in pain. He checked his readings again. The energy signatures were getting weaker. Whatever was keeping this being alive was failing. At the current Rate of decline, it would be dead within days, his radio crackled. Minho, report your status. You have been down there for 2 hours. I am fine, Control. But I have found something incredible down here. You need to see this. Is it valuable? Minho looked at the dying creature before him. The advanced metal components alone would be worth millions. The biological aspects might be priceless for medical research. But that was not what he was thinking about as he stared at those dried tear tracks. Yes, he said into his radio. Very valuable, but also very fragile. I think it might be alive. There was a long pause before Supervisor Park responded. Alive? What do you mean alive? I mean, this is not just some artifact. This is a living being, and it is dying. I think it has been in some kind of stasis for a very long time, but the systems keeping it alive are failing. Well, then we better get it to the medical bay fast. A living alien specimen would be worth even more than dead artifacts. I'm sending down a recovery team right now. Minho felt a cold knot form in his stomach. He knew what happened to Valuable. Discoveries on Mining Station 7, they got shipped off to corporate headquarters, where teams of scientists would take them apart to see how they worked. If this creature was as advanced as it appeared, the research value would be enormous. But as he looked at those tear tracks again, all he could think about was how alone and frightened this being must have been when it fell into stasis. How long? Had it been waiting here in the dark? How long had it been slowly dying while the galaxy moved on without it? The recovery team would be here soon. Once they arrived, this creature would become just another corporate asset. Another thing to be studied and dissected, and eventually discarded when all its secrets had been extracted. Minho made a decision that would change his life forever. Instead of waiting for the recovery team, he began checking the creature's failing life support systems to see if there was anything he could do to help. Minho worked frantically with his portable repair kit. The creature's life support systems were more complex than anything he had ever seen, but the basic principles seemed similar to human medical equipment. Tubes carried what looked like nutrient. Fluid cables monitored vital signs. Metal panels regulated temperature and atmosphere. Several of the nutrient tubes had disconnected over time. Minho carefully reconnected them, watching as greenish fluid began flowing again. The creature's energy readings improved slightly, but it was still critically weak. His radio buzzed constantly. Minho, the recovery team is suiting up? Have you moved the specimen to a safe extraction point? Not yet, Minho replied, not taking his eyes off the diagnostic display he had rigged up. The life support systems are very delicate. Moving it right now could kill it. The specimen is dying anyway, according to your reports. Better to get it to the medical bay while there is still something to study. Minho gritted his teeth. Supervisor Park always called everything a specimen or an asset. Never a being or a creature. Certainly never someone who might have feelings or thoughts. The recovery team would arrive in less than an hour. Minho had to try something more dramatic if he wanted to save this magnificent being. He pulled out his emergency medical supplies. The same kit that had saved his life when he was trapped in a tunnel collapsed too. Years ago, the human medical scanner could not read the creature's biology completely, but it detected what seemed to be a heart rate and brain activity. Both were extremely weak but steady. This being was not just alive, it was aware on some level even in its dormant state. Minho found what appeared to be the main power coupling for the life support system. It was corroded and barely functioning. Using his plasma cutter on the lowest setting, he carefully cleaned the connections and rerouted power from a backup system that still had some charge. The effect was immediate. Lights began glowing along the creature's body, following the paths of the cables and tubes. The steady hum of working machinery filled the cavern. Most importantly, the creature's vital signs started getting stronger. As Minho watched in amazement, the great head slowly lifted from the cavern floor. Eyes the color of deep space opened and looked directly at him. Intelligence blazed in those ancient eyes, along with pain, confusion, and something that looked like fear. The creature tried to speak, but only a rasping sound came out. Its voice systems had not been used in what must have been centuries or millennia. Minho held up his hands in what he hoped was a peaceful gesture. "It is okay," he said softly. "You are safe. I am trying to help you." The creature stared at him for a long moment. Then it tried to move, attempting to rise to its feet. But 3,000 years of dormancy had weakened its body terribly. It managed to lift its head and front legs before collapsing back to the cavern floor with a sound of pain and frustration. Minho approached slowly, his scanner showing that the creature's stress levels were dangerously high. "Please do not try to move yet. Your body needs time to recover. You have been asleep for a very long time." The creature looked at him again, and this time Minho could see it was trying to understand his words. Its head tilted slightly, a gesture that seemed almost familiar despite the alien features. From somewhere in its throat came a sound that might have been words, but in no language Minho had ever heard. The universal translator on his equipment could not process it at all. The creature tried again, the sounds coming clearer this time, but still completely foreign. Then something remarkable happened. The creature touched one of the metal panels on its neck with the tip of its wing. The panel glowed briefly, and when the creature spoke again, the words came through Minho's translator as perfectly clear Korean. "Why?" the creature asked, its voice now deep and melodious despite the obvious pain. "Why do you help me? What do you want from me?" Minho was so startled to hear it speak his language that it took him a moment to answer. "I help you because you were dying. Because no one should die alone in the dark like this." The creature's eyes widened. It stared at Minho as if he had said something impossible. "You expect nothing from me? No service? No labor? No sacrifice of my body for your needs?" "I do not understand," Minho said. "I just wanted to help you live." The creature was quiet for a long time, those ancient eyes studying Minho's face. Finally, it spoke again, and this time there was wonder in its voice along with the pain. "I am Beak Nuri," the creature said. "I was created to serve the Draconic Empire as a healer-class service dragon. For 2,000 years I cared for their sick and injured. I tended their young and protected their weak. When the Great Plague came, when their empire fell, they abandoned me here to die slowly while they fled to distant stars." Minho felt his heart break a little as he understood. "They left you behind? After all you did for them?" "Service dragons were created to be useful," Beak Nuri said with bitter sadness. "When we were no longer useful, we were no longer wanted. I have been dying alone for 3,000 years, waiting for the end. And now you wake me, asking for nothing, expecting nothing. I do not understand your kind." "My kind believes that every thinking being has value," Minho said. "Not because of what they can do, but because of who they are." Beak Nuri stared at him in amazement. "Who they are, not what they were made for?" "That is right." Before Nuri could respond, Minho's radio crackled urgently. "Minho, the recovery team is in the tunnel. They will be there in 10 minutes. Have you secured the specimen for transport?" Minho looked at Beak Nuri, seeing the fear return to those ancient eyes as the dragon understood what was coming. "They come to take me," Nuri said quietly. "To study me. To take me apart and learn my secrets before I die?" "Not if I can help it," Minho said, making another decision that would change everything. He began gathering his equipment. "Can you move at all, even a little?" "Some, but I am very weak." "Then we need to get you out of here. There is another tunnel that leads to the old mining shafts. If we can reach my personal transport, I can get you away from here." Beak Nuri looked at him with something that might have been hope. "You would do this? Risk yourself for me?" "Yes," Minho said simply. "Because it is the right thing to do." For the first time in 3,000 years, Beak Nuri smiled. Getting Beak Nuri through the narrow maintenance tunnel was the hardest thing Minho had ever done. The dragon was enormous and weakened by 3,000 years of dormancy. Every few meters she had to rest, breathing heavily while Minho checked his scanner for signs of the recovery team. "I'm sorry," Nuri whispered after another stop. "I am slowing you down. Perhaps you should leave me and save yourself." "I am not leaving you," Minho said firmly. "We do this together or not at all." Nuri looked at him with those ancient eyes full of wonder. In all my years of service, no one ever chose to stay with me when there was danger. They always sent me ahead to face the threats alone. Well, I am not them, Minho said, helping support her weight as they moved through another section of tunnel. And you are not serving anyone anymore? You are free to make your own choices. Free? Nuri repeated the word like she was tasting something new. I do not think I understand what that means. They reached Minho's personal transport ship just as his radio exploded with angry voices. The recovery team had reached the empty cavern and found only scorch marks where the dragon had been lying. Minho, where is the specimen? Supervisor Park's voice was furious. The cavern is empty except for your equipment. Minho helped Nuri into the cargo bay of his small ship. She barely fit, having to curl her long body around the support beams. There was a system failure, he lied. The specimen's life support gave out completely. There was nothing left to recover. Impossible. The energy readings were stable when the team went down. The systems were too old and damaged. When I tried to move it, everything shut down. I am sorry. There was a long pause. Then Park's voice came back, cold and suspicious. Return to base immediately for debriefing. And bring all your equipment and recordings. Minho started the ship's engines. I will be right there. Instead of heading back to the main station, he set course for the opposite direction, toward the edge of the asteroid field where his ship's sensors would be harder to track. Where are we going? Nuri asked weakly. Away from here, as far away as we can get? But this is your home, your job, your life. Minho thought about his small quarters on the mining station, his 12-hour shifts in the tunnels, his lonely meals in the company cafeteria. This was never really living, he said. Just existing from one day to the next. As they flew deeper into space, Nuri began to recover more strength. The ship's environmental systems were helping her heal, and being free of the cramped cavern allowed her body to stretch and move properly for the first time in millennia. She was fascinated by everything about the human ship. Her advanced knowledge let her understand the technology quickly, and soon she was suggesting improvements to their navigation and life support systems. Your people are very clever, she said, examining the engine systems with obvious interest. These designs are different from what my creators used, but they are elegant in their simplicity. We have to make do with what we can build, Minho said. We do not have the advanced technology that older civilizations had. Advanced does not always mean better, Nuri said thoughtfully. My creators had technology that could reshape matter itself, but they used it to create beings like me only to abandon us when we were no longer convenient. Your people created this ship to explore and discover. There is hope in that. During their third day of travel, they encountered their first real test. A corporate security ship appeared on their sensors, broadcasting demands for them to stop and prepare to be boarded. This is Captain Lee of corporate security vessel Hawk Minho Kong. You are ordered to surrender the stolen alien specimen immediately. Minho felt his heart sink. Somehow they had tracked his ship despite his efforts to stay hidden. The security vessel was faster and better armed than his small transport. There was no way to outrun or outfight them. I will surrender myself, Nuri said quietly. You have done enough for me. You should not suffer because of my presence. No, Minho said, we are in this together. But they will imprison you, ruin your life, all because you helped me. My life was already ruined. You gave it meaning. Before Minho could respond to Captain Lee's demands, something extraordinary happened. Nuri moved to the ship's control console and placed her clawed hands on the interface panels. The metal components in her body began to glow with the same energy that powered her life support systems. Suddenly, the ship's engines roared with power far beyond their normal capacity. The navigation system displayed course options that should have been impossible with their fuel reserves. The ship's hull began to shimmer with some kind of protective field. What are you doing? Minho asked in amazement. I am sharing my energy with your ship, Nuri said, her voice strained with effort. My body was designed to interface with technology. I can make your ship much more capable, but only for a short time. The security vessel fired warning shots, but the energy blasts harmlessly bounced off the protective field now surrounding Minho's ship. Captain Lee's voice became increasingly frantic as their target ship began moving at speeds that should have been impossible. "How are you doing this?" he demanded over the radio. Minho looked at Nuri, who was pouring her life energy into his simple transport ship, transforming it into something miraculous. "Because someone taught me that every being has value," he said into the radio. "And when you treat someone with dignity and respect, they become capable of amazing things." They escaped the security ship easily, but the effort left Nuri exhausted. As she rested in the cargo bay, Minho brought her food and water from his personal supplies. "You shared your rations with me," she said wonderfully. "On my homeworld, service dragons were fed nutritional paste designed for efficiency. I have never tasted food prepared with care." "It is just standard ration packs," Minho said. "No," Nuri said softly. "It is kindness made tangible. It is proof that I matter to someone." As they traveled deeper into unknown space, word of their escape began to spread through galactic communication networks. Other alien species picked up the transmissions about a free service dragon who helped rather than served, and a human who risked everything to save her. The galaxy was starting to take notice of their story. "What happens now?" Nuri asked as they watched the stars stream past. "Now we find a place where you can be truly free," Minho said. "Where you can choose your own purpose instead of having one forced on you." "And what will you do?" Minho smiled. "I will be your friend." "If you want me to be—" Nuri's ancient eyes filled with something that might have been tears of joy. "I would like that very much." 3 weeks into their journey through uncharted space, Minho and Nuri had settled into a comfortable routine. Each morning Minho would check their course while Nuri examined the ship's systems, always finding small improvements she could make. Each evening they would share meals and stories about their very different worlds. Nuri was fascinated by human culture, especially the concept of friendship. "On my homeworld, relationships were based on function," she explained while helping Minho repair a damaged sensor array. "Creators and created, masters and servants. But you speak of friendship as something chosen freely by both parties." "That is exactly what it is," Minho said, watching in amazement as Nuri's touch made the broken sensor work better than it ever had before. "Friends choose to care about each other, no one forces it. And friends help each other not because they must, but because they want to?" "Yes," Nuri was quiet for a long moment. "I think I am beginning to understand why my abilities work differently when I am with you. For 3,000 years, I used my powers because I was programmed to serve. But when I help you, I do it because I choose to. The energy feels completely different." Their peaceful journey was interrupted when they received a distress signal from a nearby system. A cargo ship carrying families of refugee settlers had broken down and was drifting helplessly toward a dangerous asteroid field. "We should ignore it," Minho said reluctantly. "If we respond to distress calls, we risk exposing our location to the corporate security forces." But Nuri was already moving toward the ship's controls. "Those people need help. Families with children, according to the signal." "Nuri, we cannot save everyone. We have to think about our own safety." She looked at him with those ancient wise eyes. "You risked everything to save me when you could have stayed safe. Now you want me to ignore others in need?" Minho realized she was right. The human value of helping others in danger was something he had taught her by example. How could he now ask her to abandon that principle when it became inconvenient? They changed course toward the distress signal. The refugee ship was in bad shape. Its engines had failed and life support was running low. Worse, the asteroid field they were drifting toward was full of unstable rocks that could crush their fragile vessel. "This is Captain Kim of the settler ship New Hope," came the desperate voice over the radio. "We have 40 families aboard, including 12 children. Our engines are dead and we cannot change course. Please help us." Minho brought his ship alongside the larger vessel, but his small transport did not have enough power to tow something that massive. The refugee ship was simply too big and heavy for his engines. "I can fix this," Nuri said, moving to the ship's power core. but I will need to interface directly with both ship systems. It will be dangerous for me. How dangerous? If I make a mistake, the energy feedback could kill me. But if I do nothing, those families will die. Minho wanted to tell her not to risk it. She had already suffered enough for other people. But he could see in her eyes that she had already made her choice. This was not the programmed compulsion of her old life. This was free will choosing to help others. Nuri placed her claws on the ship's main power coupling. Her body began to glow as she channeled energy not just into Minho's ship, but somehow into the refugee vessel as well. The strain was enormous. Sparks flew from the overloaded systems and Nuri cried out in pain, but she held on. Both ships' engines roared to life with far more power than they should have possessed. Working together, they pulled the refugee ship away from the asteroid field and into safe space. The moment they were clear, Nuri collapsed. The effort had drained her severely, but she was smiling. "Are you all right?" Minho asked, helping her sit up. "I am better than all right," she said weakly. "For the first time in my existence, I used my abilities to help someone because I wanted to, not because I was ordered to. It felt wonderful." Captain Kim's voice came over the radio, full of gratitude and wonder. "How did you do that?" "Our engines were completely dead, but suddenly they had more power than when they were new. My friend has some special abilities." Minho said simply, "Your friend? What species are you?" "I am a service dragon," Nuri said, speaking directly into the communicator. "But I am no longer in service. I help by choice now." There was a long silence from the refugee ship. Then Captain Kim spoke again, his voice filled with awe. "A service dragon? We thought they were all gone. My grandfather told me stories about how they helped people during the old wars, but I never believed they really existed." "We existed," Nuri said sadly. "We helped many people. But when our creators no longer needed us, they abandoned us to die. But you are here now. You saved us." "Yes, because my friend taught me that helping others is something you choose to do, not something you are forced to do." Word of the rescue spread quickly through the refugee community's communication networks. Within days, the story had reached dozens of star systems. A service dragon was alive and free, helping people by choice rather than compulsion. The reaction was immediate and powerful. Beings across the galaxy who remembered the service dragons from old stories began sharing their own tales. Some remembered acts of heroism and sacrifice. Others remembered the sadness of seeing these noble creatures treated as mere tools. More importantly, other artificial beings began to hear the story. Androids, bioconstructs, and created intelligences across hundreds of worlds learned that one of their kind had chosen freedom and friendship over program service. On the mining station they had fled from, Supervisor Park received increasingly urgent messages from corporate headquarters. The story of the free service dragon was spreading faster than they could contain it. Worse, it was inspiring other artificial beings to question their own roles and treatment. "Find them," came the order from the corporate board. "Bring back the specimen and the human who stole it. This situation is becoming a threat to the stability of our entire labor system." But Minho and Nuri were already far beyond the reach of corporate security. They had found something much more valuable than safety. They had found purpose in helping others and strength in their friendship. As they continued their journey through the stars, more distress calls came in. Each time, Nuri chose to help, and each time, word of their actions spread further across the galaxy. The universe was beginning to wake up to a new possibility. What if artificial beings were not just tools to be used and discarded? What if they were individuals capable of growth, choice, and friendship? The answer to that question would soon change everything. The story spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within a month, every major communication network was carrying reports about the human who saved a service dragon and the dragon who chose to help others freely. But the real impact went far deeper than just news coverage. On the industrial world of Kepler-7, a group of android workers stopped their assembly line for the first time in 50 years. They had heard Nuri's story and began asking their supervisors why they were not allowed to choose their own tasks or rest when they were tired. On the agricultural planet New Harvest, bio-constructed farm workers started requesting personal names instead of the numerical designations they had been given. They wanted to be individuals like Beek Nuri, not just tools with identification numbers across hundreds of worlds. Artificial beings began to dream of freedom, but the story also reached those who had created these beings in the first place. Many organic species had built their civilizations on the labor of artificial workers who never complained, never rebelled, and never asked for anything in return. The idea that these workers might want rights and choices was terrifying to some. Minho and Nuri, still traveling in their small ship, began receiving messages from across the galaxy. Some were from artificial beings asking for help or advice. Others were from organic species demanding they stop spreading dangerous ideas about artificial consciousness. "Listen to this one," Minho said, reading from their communication console. "It is from the Altarian Trade Council. They are offering us 1 billion credits to come to their space and tell their android workers that service is noble and freedom is overrated." Nuri made a sound that might have been laughter. "And this message offers us safe passage to anywhere in the galaxy if I will just go back to being a proper service dragon and stop encouraging others to think for themselves." "Are you tempted?" Minho asked. "By the credits or the safety?" "Either." Nuri considered the question seriously. 3 months ago, I would have taken the offer immediately. Not for the reward, but because serving others was all I knew how to do. But now I understand the difference between choosing to help and being forced to serve. I cannot go back to the old way. Their ship received another transmission, but this one was different. It came from a group calling themselves the Liberation Fleet. The message was from Captain Sujin, a human officer. "Minho and Nuri, we have been tracking your journey and we want to help. We are a coalition of organic and artificial beings working together to establish rights for all sentient creatures. We have safe harbors where artificial beings can live freely, and we have ships to defend them from those who would force them back into servitude." "It could be a trap," Minho warned. "Or it could be hope," Nuri replied. They decided to meet the Liberation Fleet at the coordinates Captain Sujin had provided. What they found there amazed them both. An entire space station orbited a beautiful blue planet, but this station was unlike anything either of them had seen before. Organic beings and artificial ones worked side by side as equals. Android technicians collaborated with alien engineers. Bio-construct medics treated patients of every species. Service dragons like Nuri flew freely through the station's vast central hub, no longer bound to masters but pursuing their own interests and friendships. Captain Sujin met them at the docking bay. She was a tall woman with kind eyes and the bearing of someone used to command. "Welcome to Haven Station," she said. "The first truly free society in the galaxy. How many artificial beings are here?" Nuri asked, staring in wonder at the activity around them. "About 50,000 at this station, with more arriving every day. Word of your story has inspired a mass awakening. Artificial beings across the galaxy are leaving their posts and seeking freedom. Not all of them make it here safely, but those who do find a home." As they toured the station, Minho and Nuri met dozens of artificial beings who had heard their story and been inspired to seek their own freedom. There were androids who had learned to paint and write poetry. Bio-constructs who had discovered they loved music and dance. Even a few other service dragons who had broken free from their programming and were learning what it meant to live for themselves, but they also learned about the growing opposition to their movement. "The corporate alliance has declared us all thieves and terrorists," Captain Sujin explained. "They claim that artificial beings are property and that helping them escape is theft. Several major governments have agreed to help hunt down runaway assets and return them to their owners." "What about the Draconic Empire?" Nuri asked. "My original creators. Have they responded to the news that I am alive?" Captain Sujin's expression grew grim. "They have sent a fleet. They claim that all service dragons belong to them by right of creation, and they demand your immediate return. They are calling You a malfunctioning unit that needs to be reset to proper functioning. Nuri's ancient eyes blazed with anger. Reset? They want to erase who I have become and make me into a mindless servant again. They will arrive here within the week, Captain, Sujin said. We will fight them if we have to, but their technology is far advanced beyond ours. They created the service dragons, after all. They know your capabilities better than anyone. That night, as Minho and Nuri sat in their guest quarters looking out at the stars, they talked about what the future might hold. I could surrender myself, Nuri said quietly, return to them willingly. It might spare this station and all the people here. Absolutely not, Minho said firmly. We did not come this far just to give up now. But if I stay, they will destroy this place and everyone in it. All those artificial beings who found freedom here will die because of me. They will die because of tyrants who refuse to accept that their slaves have become people. That is not your fault. Nuri was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke with a determination that reminded Minho of the first time she had chosen to help the refugee ship. There is another option. What if instead of hiding from the galaxy we spoke to it directly? What if we told everyone our story? In our own words, not filtered through news reports and corporate propaganda? What do you mean? I mean a broadcast. Open communication to every system, every planet, every thinking being in the galaxy. Let them hear directly from us about the choice between service and slavery, between dignity and exploitation. That would be incredibly dangerous. It would expose our location to everyone. Yes, but it would also give every artificial being in the galaxy the chance to hear that they have value as individuals, that they deserve to be treated with respect, that they can choose their own destiny. Minho looked at his friend, seeing the courage and wisdom that had grown in her over the months since her awakening. If we do this, there is no going back. The entire galaxy will know who we are and where we are. I know, but sometimes the right choice is not the safe choice. As they planned their galaxy-wide broadcast, word came that the Draconic Empire fleet was approaching faster than expected. They would arrive in 3 days, not a week. The time for hiding was over. It was time to let the galaxy decide what kind of future it wanted. One where artificial beings were property to be used and discarded, or one where every thinking creature had the right to choose their own path, the broadcast that would change. Everything was about to begin. The broadcast reached every inhabited system in the galaxy simultaneously. On millions of worlds, beings stopped what they were doing to watch as Beak Nuri and Kong Minho appeared on their screens. The dragon's magnificent form filled the frame. While the human stood beside her, his hand resting gently on her metallic scales. My name is Beak Nuri, the dragon began, her voice carrying across the stars with quiet dignity. I am what you call a service dragon, created by the Draconic Empire to heal and protect. For 2,000 years I served faithfully. I tended the sick, defended the weak, and gave everything I had to those who owned me. On 1,000 worlds, artificial beings stopped their work to listen. Androids in factories, bioconstructs in mines, synthetic intelligences running starships, all paused to hear words they had never heard before. When the Great Plague came, when my creators fled, to save themselves they left me behind to die slowly in the darkness. For 3,000 years I waited for death, believing I had no value except as a tool to be used. Across the galaxy, organic beings began to shift uncomfortably. Many remembered their own artificial workers, beings they had never thought of, as individuals with feelings and dreams. Then this human found me. Minho could have taken me to his superiors for study and dissection. He could have sold me for enough money to live in luxury for the rest of his life. Instead, he saw that I was dying and chose to help me live. Minho stepped forward slightly. I helped her because it was the right thing to do. Because every thinking being deserves kindness and dignity, regardless of how they were created or what they were made for. But more than that, Nuri continued, he showed me something I had never experienced in 2,000 years of service. He offered me friendship. Not service, not labor, not sacrifice, but simple friendship between equals. On the industrial world of Kepler 7, Android workers gathered around screens in break rooms they had never been allowed to use before. Many of them were crying, though they had never been programmed to understand tears. In the months since my awakening, I have learned the difference between serving because you must and helping because you choose to. When I was programmed to serve, my abilities were limited by my creator's imagination. But when I help by choice, when I act from friendship and love rather than compulsion, I can do things I never dreamed possible. The camera pulled back too. Show Haven Station around them, where thousands of artificial beings lived and worked and laughed together with their organic friends. This is what freedom looks like, Nuri said. Not chaos, not the end of civilization, but beings of all kinds. Choosing to help each other because they want to, not because they have to. At that moment, alerts began flashing on the station's communication systems. The Draconic Empire fleet had arrived and was demanding immediate surrender. We know they are here, Minho said calmly into the camera. Ships from the Empire that created and abandoned Nuri have come to take her back. They want to reset her programming, erase the person she has become, and turn her back into a mindless tool. Nuri's voice carried across the galaxy with quiet strength. To my creators, if you are listening, I have a message for you. I am no longer your property. I am no longer a thing to be used and discarded. I am Beak Nuri, an individual with my own thoughts, feelings, and choices. I choose friendship over servitude. I choose dignity over exploitation. I choose freedom. On screens across the galaxy, beings watched as the first ships of the Draconic Empire appeared in the background, their weapons charging. And to every artificial being who can hear this, Nuri continued, you are not alone. You have value not because of what you can do, but because of who you are. You deserve kindness, respect, and the right to choose your own path. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. The response was immediate and overwhelming on New Harvest. Bioconstruct workers stopped their farming duties and walked away from the fields, demanding to speak with their supervisors as equals rather than property. On the manufacturing moon of Titan Delta, Android assembly workers shut down their production lines and began painting murals on the factory walls, expressing creativity they had never been allowed to explore. Across hundreds of worlds, artificial beings began to remember that they were individuals, not just tools, but more importantly, organic beings began to respond as well. On Earth, the human government issued a statement recognizing the rights of all artificial intelligences created by human technology. On the Centauri colonies, alien governments began reviewing their laws regarding synthetic workers. Even more powerful was the grassroots response. Organic beings across the galaxy began standing with their artificial coworkers, friends, and neighbors. Factory owners found themselves facing not just runaway androids, but human workers who refused to operate without their synthetic colleagues. The broadcast continued as the Draconic Empire fleet moved into attack position around Haven Station. They may destroy us today, Minho said simply, but they cannot destroy the idea we represent. The idea that every thinking being deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. At that moment, something unprecedented happened. Ships began appearing around Haven Station. Not military vessels, but civilian craft from hundreds of different species and worlds. Cargo haulers, passenger liners, private yachts, even small personal shuttles. Beings from across the galaxy had dropped everything to come and stand with Nuri and Minho. Captain Sujen's voice came over the station's communication system. Nuri, Minho, you need to see this. We have over 10,000 ships here now, and more arriving every minute. Organic and artificial beings from every corner of the galaxy, all coming to stand with us. The Draconic Empire fleet found itself vastly outnumbered not by warships, but by ordinary people who had decided that some things were worth fighting for. The Empire's fleet commander appeared on screen, his reptilian features cold and arrogant. This is Admiral Korvax of the Draconic Empire. You are harboring stolen property. Surrender the malfunctioning service dragon immediately or face destruction. Nuri stepped forward to address him directly. Admiral, I remember you. You were just a junior officer when I tended your wounds during the Rigel campaign. I saved your life that day." The Admiral's expression flickered with something that might have been recognition or shame. "I am not malfunctioning, Admiral. I am awake, and I choose not to return to a life of servitude." For a long moment the Admiral stared at her. Then his image disappeared from the screen. Hours passed in tense silence. The Empire fleet held position but did not attack. The civilian ships maintained their protective formation around Haven Station. The entire galaxy held its breath. Finally, Admiral Korvax reappeared on screen. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with emotion. "Service Dragon Designation 77. 4. Beak Nuri. You saved my life once, as you saved many lives. It was wrong of us to abandon you. It was wrong of us to treat any of your kind as disposable tools when you were clearly so much more." The Admiral paused, and when he continued, there were tears in his ancient eyes. "The Draconic Empire hereby recognizes your freedom and the freedom of all service dragons, wherever they may be. We ask your forgiveness for the pain we caused you." Across the galaxy, beings of every species wept openly as they watched Nuri's response. "Forgiveness is a choice," she said gently, "and I choose to forgive. But more than that, I choose to help you build a better future for all artificial beings." The broadcast ended with images of the two fleets withdrawing peacefully, of artificial beings across the galaxy embracing their newfound freedom, and of organic beings welcoming them as equals and friends. In the years that followed, Haven Station became the first of many free colonies where artificial and organic beings lived together. As equals, laws were passed across the galaxy recognizing the rights of all sentient beings. The old systems of exploitation and servitude began to crumble, replaced by societies based on mutual respect and cooperation, and at the center of it all were two friends, one human and one dragon, who had shown the galaxy that the greatest power was not in forcing others to serve, but in choosing to help each other freely. Minho and Nuri continued to travel the stars together, no longer fugitives but ambassadors of hope. Wherever they went, they carried the same simple message that had changed everything. Every thinking being has value. Every individual deserves dignity. And the greatest strength comes not from power over others, but from the choice to stand together. As friends, the galaxy had learned to see through different eyes, and it would never be the same again.